مساء الخير جميعا. اعتقد في حد يشتري ترجمة. Somebody want to speak in English or in Arabic? Okay. السيدات والسادة الضيوف الكرام، أود أن أعبر عن تقديري لمنظمة الاقتصاد الأخضر العالمي لإتاحة الفرصة لنا لاستعراض رؤيتنا الطموحة لمواجهة أزمة نبرة المياه التي تؤثر بشكل مباشر على الأمن المائي في اليمن، وخاصة في محافظة عدن بالذات. فنبرة المياه هنا تشكل تحديا ملحا يتفاقم بفعل تغير المناخ والنمو السكاني والضغط المتزايد على البنية التحتية. وللرد على هذا التحدي أطلقنا خارطة طريق شاملة لتحلية مياه البحر في عدن تهدف إلى توفير 160 ألف متر مكعب من المياه يوميا بحلول 2035 عبر 3 مراحل تدريجية يتم تنفيذها بشراكات استراتيجية بين القطاعين العام والخاص. تبدأ هذه الخطة بإنشاء محطة بقدرة إنتاجية تصل إلى 25 ألف متر مكعب ضمن التمويلات التي سيتم تقديمها من صندوق المناخ الأخضر، وستواكب توسع المدن والمجمعات السكانية الجديدة وصولا إلى مرحلة تحقق الاكتفاء الكامل من مياه الشرب بإدارة مستدامة يقودها القطاع العام. لقد تعاوننا مع الجانب الهولندي في تطوير هذه الخارطة، حيث استضافت هولندا خلال الشهر الماضي فريقا من وزارة المياه والبيئة في زيارة استطلاعية تم خلالها تبادل الأفكار ووضع الأسس الأولى للمشروع، وتم الاتفاق على استمرار التعاون من خلال لقاءات قادمة تركز على المتطلبات الفنية والدراسات اللازمة لضمان التخطيط الأمثل والتنفيذ السليم. وتقوم استراتيجيتنا لتحلية المياه على محاور أساسية تشمل تقييما شامل لموارد المياه لرصد الفجوات الحالية والمستقبلية، واختيار المواقع المثلى، واعتماد تقنيات تحلية متقدمة لضمان جودة المياه وتقليل من استهلاك الطاقة والتكاليف، مع إجراء تحليلات دقيقة للتكلفة والفائدة لضمان الجدوى الاقتصادية طويلة الأمد. الحفاظ على البنية البيئية كجزء محوري من استراتيجيتنا، حيث نسعى للحد من الانبعاثات الكربونية من خلال استخدام الطاقة المتجددة مثل الطاقة الشمسية وغيرها. ولضمان استدامة المشروع نعمل على اعتماد نظاما متكاملا لمراقبة الأداء وتقييم الجودة والكفاءة، كما وضعنا خططا لبناء القدرات المؤسسية والبشرية لضمان التشغيل والصيانة بكفاءة واستمرار عالي. ختاما، نؤمن بأن تحقيق هذه الرؤية حقيقة تتطلب دعما من المجتمع الدولي، دعما من الأصدقاء، دعما من الصناديق، حيث لا يمكن أن تفي الميزانيات المحلية بمشروع بهذا الحجم. من خلال التمويلات نتمنى أن تكون هذه التمويلات هي أيضا بشكل كافي لمشروع من هذا النوع. أيضا نتمنى التعاون مع الآخرين في عمليات اللي هو تسهيل نقل التكنولوجيا وتبادل الخبرات، وبدعم شركائنا الدوليين يمكننا تلبية احتياجات اليمن وتأسيس مستقبل مستدام لأمنها. شكرا جزيلا للحضور.
Thank you to Mr. Abdul Hakim Raideh, Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Water and Environment, for the opening remarks. And now with Mr. Abdul Wahid Arman, Director of the Climate Change Unit, to give a brief presentation on the Desalination Roadmap and why we need it.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think I will give very brief because Mr. Abdul Hakim already summarized our work plan or our roadmap. So, firstly, we need. So, what are the challenges that needs a desalination in Aden? Actually, we conducted a vulnerability assessment in 2022 and hydrology study, and we found that there is some climate hazards related to that impact the water basin in Lahj, which support Aden city with the fresh water. And based on this study, we found that there is a water deficit in Aden, and this water deficit, within the assessment, we proposed some adaptation measure that can minimize the water deficit. But at the end, we found that the potential contribution of all the measures cannot address the challenges, and that's why we will need a desalination to address the remaining gap. But firstly, before going to desalination, we designed a project to address the water scarcity by using some innovative methods or adaptation measures through adaptation fund project to address the challenges in the water basin, the agriculture water, the irrigation water used in agriculture purposes, and also to have some water reuse that can minimize the water deficit in Toban Delta. This is the first step because we cannot go to the desalination without assessing our potential resources. So we started with this step, and we can say this is the first step in our roadmap. Then we designed our desalination strategy, which, as Mr. Hakim mentioned, started with phase one, and this phase one will be operated by private sector, and it will be used for industrial purposes. Then the second step will be for some purposes, the residential purposes in the some compounds. And the last step, the last phase will be operated by public sector, and which will be directly supplied into the network. And the total capacity of the three phases is 160,000 meter per day by 2035. So we have some progress until now. We analyze the barriers and we propose measures to address these barriers. And now we, as Mr. Hakim just mentioned, with our Netherlands partners, we started working on some studies and the assessment that are needed to have the enabling condition for such a project. So this is the barriers or expected barriers to deploy such technology in Yemen. They can be summarized in technical challenges, institutional and regulatory challenges, and finally financial challenges. The technical challenges are related to energy and the efficiency of the public network. The institutional challenges are related to the policies and also the partnership between private sector and public sector, and financial challenges related to capital costs, operation costs, and so on. So now we are working, we already worked on pre-feasibility study with UNDP by assessing the potential locations for such a project. And this study concluded some potential location, but it still needs some further assessments in order to come out with enabling environment for such project. Now we're also working on a concept note with the Green Climate Fund, but it's from four components, started with the water supply solar energy, critical water infrastructure, institutional capacity building, and finally the technical capacity buildings to operate desalination technology. We conducted a workshop in November with UNDP about exploring the potential partnership between the private and public sector, and we found that there are potential private sector that are ready to engage in such a project, but we still need to have the enabling regulatory framework for this partnership. Now, for the first phase, we proposed initial financial mechanism, started with international investment through loans and grants. This will be operated by a private sector and will supply the industries that are using water, and this will be the repayment will go back to the private sector and also to the international investment or international donors, and also public sector will have key role here to find the regulatory framework for the project. For next steps will be the development of detailed economic feasibility studies, environmental and social impact assessments, financial mechanism, and also all the other requirements that need to operate the desalination project in Aden. So this is the summary of our roadmap for the desalination project, and also in the panel discussion, we will have we will discuss more details regarding the project. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abdul Wahid, for the detailed presentation. Now, with our panel discussion, I would like to invite our speakers, Mr. Jamal Sayadi, Head of the Technical Office at the Ministry of Water and Environment, Mr. Amjad Al-Mahdi, Regional Director at the MENA region at the GCF, Green Climate Fund, and Dr. Mohammed Al-Hamiqani, an environmental expert working with the Ministry of Water and Environment. And myself, I will be the moderator. Can you hear me? Yes, thank you. I will start our conversation with Mr. Jamal. Can you hear me, Mr. Jamal? Hello, can you hear me? Test. Yes. Um, can you, Mr. Jamal, can you speak to the context and the scene that set up the decision to go and consider desalination as one of the key solutions that the Ministry of Water and Environment is considering for the near future, because it's a bold decision given the Yemeni context and the fragility and conflict that is surrounding the area.
Hello. Okay. First of all, I want to say that the data was mentioned here in the presentation, it's some not up-to-date data. So we have a lack of data. The deficit and supply quantities and the demand is not according to the actual needs now, actual information. So that's need to be updated. That's very important issue. This data already more than 20 years ago period. So that's very important. With regard to Aden, that's the data regarding all the Turan data, not related to Aden. To Aden, today we are in deficit for 100,000 per day, cubic meter per day. So we supply the Aden city with the half of their needs, and that's needed to be distributed in 2 or 3 days. So every family receive water every 3 days, and they don't have the storage capacity for for all this for this time. And the other issue, that's the water resources itself. Aden City doesn't have its own water resources. All the resources it's outside the boundary of Aden Governorate. It's located in the adjacent governorate, Abian and Lahaj. So that's critical for Aden. So the need for Aden for desalination is not a luxury, it is a must.
Thank you very much. Just to give a little bit of context, Aden is, since I see some of our esteemed guests are not from Yemen, Aden is the largest city in the south of Yemen and has a population of around, I think, 2 million people. And, you know,
Even the sphere, we don't know.
yes, we don't know for sure. We guess the number is 2 million. And the deficit in information or the lack of information information, most probably the real figures are worse than the figures that we provided in the presentation earlier.
That's true.
Thank you. Mr. Amjad Al-Mahdi, I have a question. How do you view the investment in desalination as a technology for climate adaptation? And how do you view the approach to desalination in context similar to the context in Yemen?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And I'm glad to see the Yemen taking that approach for desalination, taking the work that has been already done and highlight even if you access all other resources, you're still having that gap that you really need to meet. And the only solution in that case, it's really to look at the seawater or desalination. I think to make the desalination plant investment becoming as an adaptation project. So I think the narrative need to come very clear, supported by data as an evidence. So I think that narrative need to come as the climate issues that you are facing, and of course Yemen has facing an immersive climate challenge, and that narrative need to come very clear in terms of what hazard you have been facing, the historical trend of that hazard, and also the impact of that hazard, and then the future trend of that hazard, and of course the expected future impact. And taking that narrative to conclude with the data, the gap, and also the work that being conducted to define that the only option that you currently have. And by doing that, that's really helping GSEF to take the project as it's a climate project, it's an adaptation project, and also it is the only option left. So there is no other alternative that you can really consider. And of course, to make the project also more aligned with GSEF, because GSEF, when GSEF invested, we investing under the Paris Agreement. So you really need to show us what are really the benefits of the reduction of the CO2 and also the improving resilience or adaptation. And of course, this project will show improving resilience, but really to increase the mitigation options or the opportunity for CO2 reductions, I think in the design of the desalination plant, you really need to consider the opportunity of solar power, how you can actually use solar power to operate the plant, for example. You don't need to have it 100%. So you can, as you're planning phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, you can also scale it up as well. So you can aim it for 30% or 40% of the energy source of the operation of the desalination plant. It can be also sourced from solar power. That will make the project again more aligned with the climate finance. And I wanted to share some lessons learned from other countries as well, because that will help you really to in the way you're moving forward with that concept note and also the design of the project. So first, you really need to consider who will be your partner on that project. So it's great you're considering PPP or public-private partnership, which again, it's the right modality to engage the private sector in such project. But to access GSAFE money or climate finance, you really need to think about who would be your partner as an accredited entity to bring that project to GSAFE. And of course, for such type of large investment, I think the options are very limited. Yeah, it could be IFC, it could be World Bank, one of those entities that's able to access GSAFE money but also mobilize other financial resources, because for such type of investment you require other source of finance to be engaged. But also the other lesson learned as well, it's you can also tap on, in terms of the technology you choose, tap on the lesson learned from the region. Of course, you are sitting in the Gulf states, and the Gulf states is the most advanced countries in terms of desalination production, and that's also coming as for the technology perspective. If you look at the Saudi technology, for example, they've been able to bring the cost down to almost 53 cents per cubic meter, which again, that's very attractive as a cost, and can be allow again the scale of affordability of using that desalination produced water. So that's another lesson learned, like how you tap on the existing technology in the region, the existing expertise when you come to the design, the selection of the technology, and the selection of the operational system that you will do for that desalination plant. The other lesson learned as well, it's really how you engage with the community. I think it's like moving from like fresh water to like to other alternative sources as like desalination that could end up with like increasing cost. You really need to engage again with the stakeholder. You really need to bring the community with you as well. However, if you are accessing GCF finance, GCF finance can also help you to ensure that scale of affordability. So one example, like we currently involved in a very advanced discussion with Jordan for like Aqaba desalination plant, which again, it's a very large desalination plant. And with our concessional finance, we've been able really to ensure the water tariff will be not increased for 40 years. And that's really to ensure that scale of affordability of the for the people like to access that desalination water, because desalination water comes with an extra cost. So we try to use our concessionality with our partner of that project, IFC, through the PPP as well to ensure with the private sector we will maintain the water tariff with no increase for like 40 years. So that again something you really need to consider when you design such project as well. I think like yeah, those are really the key lesson learned that you really need to consider when you design like a desalination project. And of course, the last lesson learned, again, getting the desalination plant financed by other institutions or other donors that could be also like multilateral banks or other development banks or even bilateral agreement, because you really need to mobilize a lot of finance. But also like we need to ensure the country ownership as well. That's very critical because like yeah, all finance can come in, private sector can come in, and they operate, and then what is next? I think the country need to own the process, plus of course build the capacity inside the country to ensure really like that desalination plant will continue to operate, and also you will continue to manage the relationship between the government and the private sector, and of course all the potential user or the customer as well.
Thank you for the very detailed answer. Now I have a question to Dr. Mohammed Al-Humayqani. What are some of the environmental and social considerations when you address a project such as desalination in a city such as Aden? Can you give us some of your perspectives on that?
Thank you. Thank you, Abdullah, for the introduction. And thanks also to the Ministry of Water and Environment for their invitation to be part of this session. First of all, the desalination or the seawater desalination project is like any other project. So it has environmental impact, and that impact should be assessed at the early stage as possible. So all the relevant considerations will be taken at the early stage and will be avoided during the construction process and the operation. So basically, we can say that given the geographical and we can say the geographical of the Aden metropolitan, like humid and somehow it has high temperature and some other environmental circumstances, so there might be some special considerations for the environmental assessment. So this might be the first one, and the other one that we have some constraints in terms of the wetlands protections and some of the availability of the locations for the that could be provided, could be utilized for initiating or for constructing such a project. So I think as maybe Dr. Amjad already mentioned, that some considerations should be taken, like the integration of the renewable energy. I think that's one of the most important part that can exactly help to have sustainable project with low emissions. This is one, and I think the PV technology could be utilized for that purpose. And there are some couple of examples we can see here and there. The second thing is about exactly the land use or the selection of the locations given the type of the desalination that will go, for example, for centralized or decentralized, it depends. So based on that decision, then it will be exactly define the types of environmental impact. So I think one of the main issues that generated from the desalination project is the brine, which is the rejected water after desalination. I think this is one of the main issues, and we can see here in the Gulf region that they face a lot of challenges of disposing this water or treating this water or utilizing the water after the desalination. So, but generally speaking, there are different technologies or different techniques and methods that could also improve the way of utilizing brine after the desalination process. So, including the pre-treatment, for example, in some technologies, we can see that the pre-treatment can help and can improve to have the recovery rate up to 90%. And this is one of the studies showed this number. But generally speaking, the recovery rate is 50%, from 40 to 50%. That means the rejected brine is from 40 to 60%. So, but utilizing the pre-treatment could make the brine is just only 10% out of the intake water process. So this is one. The second one, there are some other also examples that would reduce the impact of the brine, like for example, using the open plants to evaporate the water and utilize the salt that will be left behind. The other method also to inject the brine into the ground, but that will have might be some consequences on the groundwater and may increase the salinity of the groundwater and convert the water to brackish water. And there are some chemical treatments that could be also used or applied for the brine to reduce the contaminants before the final disposal. So this is maybe one of the environmental aspects. And there are some others, but I don't know if you want me to jump to other social and other aspects.
I think we are approaching the time limit that we have, and I would like to have 1 minute to have any questions from the audience. If there are anybody who's interested in having any questions. Yes. Yes.
Because we are targeting DCF as the first funder for the project, what is the best from the listener? What's the best financial mechanism that can help us to operate such a project, and also that will give us more opportunities to approve such a project? Because I do understand that the financial mechanism or the business model play key role in approving projects by DCF.
Thanks, Abdulrahman. I think it's hard to give a concrete answer for this without knowing the total cost of the plant at the moment, without looking at the design, the technology, and all of that. But what I can help you with, I think taking the approach of the private or public-private partnership, I think that's the right approach to ensure really the plant is operationalized and maintained at least for 25 years, and the government will receive the service from the private sector, and then you give it to your customer, which is the people in Aden. I think that's the right approach for such project. And then maybe after 25 years, you can renew that contract again with the private sector if there is an interest at that time or upgrade for the technology and so on. When it comes to to secure the total financial amount, whatever the cost is. So again, you have to consider you're approaching GCF, but GCF will not be able really to meet the whole financial request. So I think it will be how you use the financial that GCF can provide to leverage other finance. And to make that happen, you really need to choose the right partner or a great entity that can actually help you to make that happen. And also get the right documentations to really attract the proper private sector as well. So that also will require in Yemen to start thinking about what are the enabling environment that will attract the private sector to come and invest. And you can learn from the neighbor countries like Jordan. I would not say like Saudi Arabia or Emirates because they are very advanced. But if you look at Jordan, for example, or Egypt or Morocco, they start doing desalination plants, and they are at very early stage. So you can also visiting them and try to understand the regulatory framework they have applied, and you try to bring this on board before you start to put the tender out and so on, because that again will strengthen your case as a government when you negotiate with the private sector the agreement or the public-private partnership.
Thank you. Thank you very much to our esteemed panelists, and thank you for all the guests. I would like also to thank the WeGo Pavilion for hosting this lovely event, and finally thank the government of Azerbaijan and the people of Azerbaijan for this great COP event. Thank you very much.